Story time about when I lost my virginity to a water slide. So, do you guys know those water slides that you stand in and then they suddenly drop you straight down onto the water slide? If not, look them up on YouTube. There's nothing like them. Ah, yes, the sweet memories of my first time on one of these. I feel that my mental and emotional scars have healed enough to tell this gem. At the time, my girlfriend, now fiance, worked as a photographer for one of those resorts with the indoor and outdoor water parks. One of her perks was that her and a family member or friend could get into the water park for free. So one hot summer day she had off, we both decided it'd be fun to go there and cool down for the day. While we were there, I discovered one of their most thrilling looking water slides. Basically, you stand in this tube and then the slide operator presses a button and the slide drops you straight down like 90 feet before you actually start going down the water slide. Me, being a thrill seeker, of course, had to try it. So I made a great climb up to the top of the slide, stood in line, and finally it was my turn. Once I got in the tube, the operator told me to keep my legs crossed. Now I'm a pretty big heavy guy, so I was like, that's uncomfortable as fuck, I'm not doing that. So there I was, standing in the tube, having a panic attack from anticipation, with my legs not crossed. The operator finally presses the button and the bottom opens and I fall straight down the water slide. Very quickly I realized why they have you cross your legs. Water shot so far up my ass, so fast, I swear I tasted it in my mouth. My body raced down that slide as I questioned every life choice I had ever made. Once I made it down to the bottom, I sat there for a moment, absolutely violated. I felt like someone in an old episode of Law & Order, Special Victims Unit. I built up the courage to finally stand up, and all I could feel was a nice warm stream of water mixed with shit, and maybe a little bit of blood shoot out of my ass faster than a steamboat geyser at Yellowstone National Park. I quickly got off the slide and ran to the bathroom with a trail of shitty water tailing me as the slide operator stared in awe. They had to shut down the slide for the rest of the day, but man was my asshole clean after that.
Story time about how my boyfriend sent me proof that he was cheating on me by mistake. My stupid, idiotic boyfriend is so dumb. Like, seriously dumb. We've been dating for 6 months and we met on a dating app. As soon as we became boyfriend and girlfriend, he introduced me to all of his friends. And one of his best friends happens to be a girl. A very, very good-looking girl. And no, I didn't even let it bother me because he told me he loved me and he liked me. And obviously, like, why wouldn't he just date her? But here's the thing. Every time I would hang out with her and my boyfriend, she would make it so obvious that she was competing for his attention. She would wear really short crop tops and show off all her cleavage. And if a big group of us went to a bar, she would make sure to get super drunk and make a scene. And anytime that she would get hit on by a guy, she would run to my boyfriend and tell her to save him. And he did everything she told him to. A few weeks ago, we were all at a house party and she made sure to only dance with him the entire night. Of course, this made me uncomfortable, so I started asking him questions. He denied everything profusely, so I just let it go. But a few days later, I get a screenshot that he obviously meant to send to one of his guy best friends about his girl best friend. And this screenshot was a picture that she had sent him, along with a few messages that they had sent each other. He told her that she looked hot in the picture and that she was hoping I would break up with him soon. What more proof did I need? In the screenshot that he sent me by mistake, I read the messages between him and his girl best friend. And the last message was her asking him, so when are you gonna break up with her to be with me? Mind you, my boyfriend and I have been together for 6 months. We had already talked about getting an apartment together and I didn't see this coming whatsoever. So here's what I did. I took a screenshot of the screenshot he sent me and I sent it back to him. When I saw that he read it, he didn't say anything. So instead I tried to call him. Guess what? He blocked me. I was at work at the time, so I couldn't leave my job. But I spent the rest of my shift running to the toilet because I had diarrhea. I was nervous and my palms were super sweaty. Mom spaghetti. But seriously, I felt sick to my stomach. After an hour, I realized that he was totally gonna ignore me. I decided to send the screenshot to her. That's when this girl told me to leave them alone and that my boyfriend didn't want to hear from me ever again. I told her that he was the one that needed to tell me that. Then she sends me a picture of him and her kissing. She was ruthless. Once my shift ended, I drove straight to his house, but he wasn't there. I went to the bar where they usually hang out, but they weren't there either. Finally, a few hours later, I get a message from him telling me that I just need to get over him and that the relationship wasn't going anywhere. Oh yeah, and that he was totally in love with his best friend, but he didn't realize it until he started dating me. He even left all of my stuff in a box outside of his house. It's been a week and I still haven't seen his face. I want to get back with him, but I realize he's a bad guy. What do I do?
My 22 female boyfriend, 25 male, is hiding all of my stuff. And I have no idea why. My boyfriend of 5 months just moved in with me 3 weeks ago. He had some problems with his apartment, damp walls, and has to be renovated. As my roommate is currently spending some time abroad, I told him it would be okay if he stayed at my place for 4 to 6 weeks. He'll be able to move back to his own apartment by that time. So now we've been living together for 3 weeks and things started out great. Jealousy had been a bit of a problem between us because we often go out separately, probably once a week, but coming home to the same apartment helped him get over that.
Interesting.
But there has been one new problem. Now, this may seem petty at first, but I'm really at my wit's end with this one. Ever since he moved in with me, things started disappearing and then reappearing one day later in the same place they were missing from. I'm talking about documents, small household items, and food. And it's not like losing keys and then finding them again somewhere. I specifically look for something in a certain place where it isn't, but it's there the next day. For example, I like to take a chocolate bar with me to work in the morning, and for that, I normally have a pack of chocolate bars at home. Shortly after he moved in with me, I woke up to find all the chocolate was gone. I asked him about it. He said he didn't know anything about it. I came home just to find the chocolate bars are in the cupboard again. I asked him. He says he doesn't know anything about it. Quote, maybe you just didn't see them in the morning. We're talking about a large pack with about 12 chocolate bars. How can I not see that? At first, I thought it was maybe some kind of strange humor, but he seems angry when I bring it up. And it's starting to really piss me off because sometimes it's been items belonging to one of my friends that I wanted to give back to them and then couldn't, or it was certain documents I needed for a certain day. Now I have absolutely no idea what this is about. I am not crazy. I just don't understand at all. He gets really angry when I talk about it, saying I'm making this up just to, quote, cause drama. Why should I? I have no idea what's going on. Any ideas?
This is like the weirdest shit I've ever heard.
While on vacation in a city 8 hours away from home with my girlfriend, we get into a small argument, and this resulted in me leaving her stranded in a downtown area in the middle of the night. I walked back to the hotel 20 minutes nearby to cool off, thinking my girlfriend would eventually make her way back soon after. However, after 2 hours, my girlfriend was escorted back by police. Turned out, her phone was on low battery, leading her to not be able to look up directions on the way back or call for an Uber. She ended up getting lost for an hour and had to later borrow a stranger's phone to call the cops for help. I felt pretty horrible leaving her there. However, given that my girlfriend is already a full functioning adult, I didn't consider the possibility of her phone being dead. She does have a bad habit of forgetting to charge her phone. I threw her a Metro card and stormed away. She ended up overreacting to the whole situation, claiming that I abused her, packing her belongings and calling her sister on the phone to tell her about what I did. Her sister ended up blowing up my phone, calling me cruel and abusive. Mind you, I only left thinking that she'd be able to get home easily. Even though it was a couple hours past midnight, the city was still crowded with people, probably not dangerous like she exaggerated. When my girlfriend was still crying to her sister, she lied and said that she's now feared for her life, possibly implying that I threatened her. In the heat of the moment, I snatched the phone out of her hands to talk to her sister myself. She suddenly screamed to the top of her lungs, another overreaction, took her belongings and ran out of the hotel. I chased her down, but she told me that she had already booked a flight home in the early morning and never wanted to see me again. She kept saying that I hit her when all I did was try to explain myself. Her evidence being the very tiny nail mark I left on her face when she was trying to resist, snatching her phone back and didn't let me talk to her sister. 2 hours later, a police officer knocked on my hotel room as I realized that my girlfriend had gone to the police station and reported me for domestic violence. I gave my statement and they advised me to stop contacting her for the night. I didn't want this incident to ruin my hard-earned vacation, so I decided to stay for the rest of the trip like I had initially planned. After I got back, I tried calling her sister and her mom and they refused to hear my explanation. Her mom even told me that they're still being interviewed by the police to follow up on the domestic violence report. I heard her sister telling me over the phone that I will pay my price. What could that be? My parents are undocumented. Now I'm paranoid that her family, knowing this information, would call the anonymous tip line on my parents. Am I the asshole for getting into a small argument with my girlfriend and then leaving her stranded?
Storytime of how my parents forced me to marry a 40-year-old man when I was 14, but most people from my country, it is called arranged marriage, and it happened to a lot of girls. My family was poor, but the guy I was marrying had a lot of money and promised to take care of me and my family. He also had a 6-year-old son, but he didn't like me. I had met him once before when my mother introduced him to us. She allowed me to stay with him alone. He was very touchy. He told me I was very beautiful and would spoil me because pretty girls like me deserve pretty things. After he left, I told my parents that I was scared to marry him and that I'll do more housework and I'll take care of my other little sisters. My father yelled at me and told me no. So the next week, I went throughout the whole wedding crying. My mom told me to stop because I was messing up my makeup. After we had got married, a couple months later, he grew very abusive. Part 2 will be up next. This is part 2 of how my parents forced me to marry a 40-year-old man and I was 14. So we got married and a couple months into the relationship, he became abusive. Whenever my food tasted nasty or something wasn't clean right, he called me a lazy wife and told me I was no good and he should have married someone else. His 6-year-old son had no respect for me. The little boy scratched me, would yell at me, throw stuff at me, and my husband wouldn't do anything about it. I would tell him that I didn't like how his son was treating me, and he stood up and tells me to stay in my place and tells me I'm just a bad mother. I'd cried every night, wishing I could go back home to my mother and father. 2 years later, when I turned 16, I found out I was pregnant. He was so happy about it, and for once, he treated me so sweet. He would cook for me, clean, and told his son to be nice because his little brother was in there. When we found out the baby was a girl, he got mad and walked out on me. Part 3 will be up next. This is part 3 of how my parents forced me to marry a 40-year-old man and I was 14. So my husband was excited that I was pregnant, but when he found out I was having a baby girl, he got very upset and walked out of the room. When we got home, he started treating me nasty again. He then started putting his hands on me. He was just very angry at me and never wanted to see his daughter. It took him 3 weeks before picking her up, but even then, he wanted nothing to do with her. As years went on, I became quiet, and I wouldn't speak to him. I would just make sure our home was clean and the children were taken care of. He would just get upset with me that I wouldn't speak to him and accuse me of cheating. He claimed that I was sleeping with other men and that our daughter is probably not even his child. I never understood why, because I was always home because he didn't allow me to go out. But I soon realized he only accused me of cheating because he was cheating the entire time. Part 4 is coming up soon. This is part 4 of how my parents forced me to marry a 40-year-old man and I was 14. My husband would always accuse me of cheating, but I found out he only accused me because he was cheating on me the entire time. Ended up finding out because his son told me. And like I said earlier, his son never liked me in the first place. So when I had made him upset, he randomly said that's why my dad has a new woman. I was off about it, so I went to ask my husband about it, and he admitted to it. He was very blunt about it, and he told me it was because the lady tempted him. I believed him at the time, but as time grew on, I started to become very insecure. I'd do whatever he want, but it was never good enough because he still kept stepping out of our marriage. On my 19th birthday is when I realized I had to figure out a way for me and my daughter to leave him. He didn't even say happy birthday to me, and that was my husband. I had no money, I didn't own anything, but I took a chance, so I packed whatever I could, and I planned for me and my daughter to run away while he went to work. This is part 5 of how my parents forced me to marry a 40-year-old man and I was 14. So like I said before, I made a plan for me and my daughter to run away while he went to work. When he left, I packed up food, clothes, and took money that we saved up just in case something happened. I woke my daughter up out of her sleep and I told her we need to go. I woke up sun up and I told him we were going to the store and that we would be right back. He went right back to sleep and I gathered our things and took me and my daughter to the train station. She asked where we were going and I told her we were going to see our other family. When we got on the train, my daughter went to sleep and I cried because of all the pain I was put through with my husband. I left and I wasn't able to say goodbye to my mother, father, or any of my younger sisters. I didn't want any of them to know because I knew they were going to try to send me back. And leaving was the best decision that I made of my life. It's now been 23 years and I found my now husband and we're living a better life. And I bless God for allowing me to make. This story time is from a follower and she really needs advice. By the way, we're calling her Ashley and she's 19. And also, please, no one judge her. So, Ashley is a pole dancer. She does OnlyFans, and she has a 72-year-old sugar daddy that pays all of her bills. And Ashley also has a boyfriend, but he knows the work that she does. Well, recently, Ashley wanted to get out of that type of work and go to school for nursing. For the past couple months, she saved up, she quit her job, and she cut her sugar daddy off. Well, something crazy happened. She found out she was pregnant, and she doesn't know if it could be her sugar daddy's or her boyfriend. She didn't plan out school and a baby, and she's afraid that the sugar daddy won't be in the baby's life due to his age, and her boyfriend doesn't work, and she's afraid that he won't be able to financially support her or the baby. So she thought about getting an abortion and not telling anyone. If she could get some other opinions, that would be great. So please give her some advice down below. Story time of my crazy stalker ex-boyfriend. By the way, we're calling him Michael. So me and Michael started talking in the middle of my senior year in high school. I met him at a friend's party and he seemed pretty cool. He was very affectionate. He would take me out all the time. He introduced me to his family. He said he loved me within the first week. He wanted all of my time and he seemed so perfect. Until suddenly he started to get very controlling. He never wanted me to go out anywhere. He didn't like the clothes that I wear. He didn't like any of my friends. He made me feel guilty whenever I tried to do something for myself. After months of dealing with this controlling behavior, I wanted to leave the relationship. He got mad at me. He was threatening to hurt me and himself if I left. I told him I was done. The next day, like any old regular day, I go to school and I come back home. But when I came back home, I open up my door and I see Michael sitting on my couch with a taser. I'll be back for part 2. This is part 2 story time of my crazy stalker ex-boyfriend. So like I said before, I get home and Michael is sitting on my couch with a taser. I ask him, "What are you doing here? And how did you get in?" He's like, "Your mom let me in. I told her you asked for help for homework." I yell and call for my mom and he's like, "Oh, she left. She said she was going to the grocery store real quick." I turn around and try to leave out the house. He runs and shuts the door. And he's like, "Oh, baby, please don't go. Listen, I heard you earlier and I'm sorry for being so controlling. I just love you so much, and I don't want anything to happen to you. I asked him, why did you pop up, and why did you bring a taser? He said, I just wanted to surprise you. And I'm like, for what? He goes into his pocket and pulls out a ring saying he wanted to get engaged, trying to hand me a ring that looked like he got out of a gumball machine. I laugh at him, and he pushes me against the door. It gets real scary after this. Y'all let me know if y'all want a part 3. This is part 3 story time of my crazy stalker ex-boyfriend. So like I said before, he popped up at my house with a taser. He told me he wanted to get engaged, and basically if I didn't say yes, he was going to hurt me. So for the time being, I pretended like everything was okay, and I told him yes, even though the idea of it disgusted me. He told me he wanted to go on a getaway trip and that I should pack my bags. I was like, I have school tomorrow. And he said, you can miss one day of school for your man. I told him no, and he grabbed my arm, telling me to go get my stuff. I went upstairs immediately, and when I got to my room, I tried to call the cops, and I guess he overheard me because he busted into my room, starting to fight me. I don't know how, but we ended up in the hallway, and he fell down the stairs. He became unconscious, and at that moment, I ran out of the house, and I called the cops again, but about an intruder. He ended up waking back up and was arrested, but that wasn't just it. Couple years later, he came around stalking me at school, my job, even my friends and family. Here's another toxic best friend story time and how I ended up having to fight her over her own boyfriend. So we're calling her Regina, and at the time we just graduated college, and that's where she met her boyfriend Kyle. They were together for a couple months, but I never met him, and as the story goes on, you'll find out why. 5 months into their relationship, Valentine's Day is coming up, and I wanted to do a double date. The 14th comes, and she canceled on me last minute, and she literally said, word for word, that she doesn't need her boyfriend being tempted to try to cheat on her on Valentine's Day. I didn't like that because she was implying that I would be the reason why he cheated. Anyways, a couple months later, I planned for us to do another double date for 4th of July. So we went to the beach, and of course, we wore bathing suits. I wore a 2-piece and she wore a 1-piece with a skirt. When we get to the beach, I start to get undressed. She pulls me aside saying, why are you wearing that in front of my boyfriend? You look like a whore. Like for... Here's part 2 of how I ended up having to fight my toxic best friend over her own boyfriend. So, like I said before, we go to the beach, we start getting undressed, and my friend Regina pulls me aside saying, why would you wear that in front of my boyfriend? You look like a whore. I get mad at her and tell her that we're at a freaking beach. What else do you expect me to wear? She starts talking about how I'm always trying to show off in front of guys that she brings around. And I tell her, my date is here also. Why would I do that in front of him or you? She tells me that I'm thirsty and that I'm looking for attention. I laugh because I'm like, she gotta be joking. Then out of nowhere, she takes my towel, throws it at me very hard as though she wanted to hurt me, and says, put your clothes back on, you. And guys, I'm crazy on this girl. Just know that at the end of the fight, she had a mouthful of sand in her mouth. And of course, the guys pulled us apart. She ended up packing all her things to go with her boyfriend, and I stayed at the beach and chilled all day.